Hey guys, what's up? I just wanted to show off my flat crit build that I've going because I've been having a lot of fun with it and I don't really see too many people speccing out like that. Now full discretion, this is a glass cannon build, so to speak. One downside is that it's very squishy, but what it lacks in health management it makes up for in just pure damage output. The sheer damage potential with this is just absolutely nuts. I mean, one might even argue that it's game breaking, but that's what Borderlands is about, right? So without further ado, we'll get into it. With any good flat crit build, it all starts with fadeaway. And fadeaway is huge because it makes every shot you take turn into a critical hit, no matter where you hit the enemy on the hitbox, which is huge for this build. It also adds a massive boost to crit damage in general. Now, I found that the first tier of this skill tree really doesn't matter a whole lot. You can assign the points wherever you want, but as I mentioned before, we're pretty squishy, so we're going to want some health regen and health bonuses wherever we can get them, and this is a good place for it. The self-repairing system, just a nice health buff and regen that's good late game. In the next tier, we're going to go ahead and max out Eager to Impress as well as Overclocked. Overclocked basically increases our fire rate, and we'll see why that's important later on in the build. Eager to Impress reduces our cooldown on fadeaway, and we want to be in fadeaway as long as possible and whenever is possible. Also, Gorillas in the Mist activates at this tier, and basically it changes our ult to be active for 8 seconds rather than going away after 3 shots. This is where the build starts to emerge. Critical hit damage is reduced, but trust me, we're going to have plenty of damage later on. Next, we're going to go ahead and pop 2 points into Turn Tail and Run. While still we get a little bit of fire rate bonus and gun damage, and while moving we get some health regen and damage reduction, which is nice. Truthfully though, it's kind of hard to stand still in combat, especially in MAM 3. Things can get a little chaotic. So really this skill's kind of irrelevant, but we still need it to get into the next tier. This next tier is where we really start to scratch the surface of Fl4k's damage potential. Fast and Furious grants more gun damage and movement speed, while Hidden Machine is perfect for us because we gain 30% bonus damage while Fl4k is not a target, aka when he's in fadeaway. The other augment we're going to want to use is Unblinking Eye. Successive hits on the same target increases Fl4k's critical damage per hit. Unblinking Eye resets every 3 seconds. Critical hit damage plus 75% per hit. So basically, we're going to be shooting a lot of bullets, and this is going to cycle really fast. So we're going to do incredible critical hit damage bonuses over and over and over. So you can see why that's good. The capstone, the power inside, is amazing. This basically turns Fl4k into a monster. Now when we activate fadeaway, we gain 25% more damage minimum, but if we activate at full health, this becomes a 50% damage buff. That 50% will stack on top of every other skill and every other item bonus. Also, I should just mention that we're going to go with the Gunslinger Jabber just for movement speed and critical hit damage. There's only one skill in the master tree that's worth picking up, but it fits our build so perfectly that it's pretty hard to ignore, so I maxed it out. Fully spec'd, Persistent Hunter will give us even more gun damage. The kicker is we can now stay in fadeaway for just about 4 more seconds, which totals to slightly less than 12 seconds of utter devastation. Now the way I spent the remainder of my skill points in the Hunter tree is slightly subjective and ultimately changed as I found new guns in the game, which synergized with the build in different ways. So bearing that in mind, this is what I went with. The only reason I have the skill Leave No Trace maxed out is due to the nature of one gun that is too amazing to ignore, which we'll get to. Second Intention isn't too critical because ideally we will never need to reload with this build if it's played right. On a side note, this is why I love this build, because it has such a high skill cap to it and it feels amazing when you're landing all your crits outside of fadeaway, which leads to more fadeaways, and it just keeps cycling and cycling, and it's super fun. Regardless, I think it's more important to have the reload buff from this Second Intention on the off chance that you are missing your crits regularly and do need to reload. Interplanetary Stalker and Hunter's Eye are good skills, don't get me wrong, but they're a little too specific and the skill points remaining are better utilized in other skills such as Head Count and Ambush Predator. Head Count is a skill that brings the build full circle. Now, while outside of fadeaway, we have an extremely effective way to get us back into fadeaway faster, as each critical hit we have has a 30% chance to reduce the cooldown timer by 2 seconds. Also remember that every time we kill an enemy, we reduce the timer by 1.25 seconds as well due to the skill Eager to Impress. So this stacking together gets us into fadeaway super fast. And Ambush Predator is a very good skill but has a slight downside built into it. When maxed, we gain a 20% crit damage buff, but with the catch that It's only active when there's no enemies next to Flak. That won't matter though in boss situations, as the targets are generally massive and very distant, so this skill will have an effect when you need it. For mobbing, that other gun I keep mentioning will take care of the raw damage needed when fighting close quarters. We're definitely going to want to max out Two-Fang though, as statistically every 4th shot our damage will be doubled, and we're going to be firing off a lot of rounds with this build. I wish there was enough skill points left over to max out the most dangerous game, but as of now we can just go ahead and allocate the last point into this skill. It will give us a 2-minute buff to gun and crit damage every kill on a badass or stronger, which is essentially a constant thing in the harder difficulty. Now with the skill trees out of the way, we can get into the juiciest part, the guns and items. I do want to mention that I'm going to specify where I got these, so that might lead to some potential spoilers, so be advised. This is the gun that I've been talking about. This is my baby, the Speed Loading Hellwalker. I was able to get one of these puppies to drop at level 26, and I used it all the way to level 50 until I farmed the new one. Not many people understand just how devastating these things really are with Flak. They have a whopping 533 times 10 base damage, which is amplified by the additional 57% weapon damage and 10% crit damage. Also, because it's a Jacob, every pellet that lands as a crit will ricochet and hit another enemy nearby, but while in Fade Away, the ricochets also count as crits. Each one of the pellets that struck the first enemy, as well as the enemies struck on the ricochet, has a 36% chance to add ammo back into the mag due to the skill Leave No Trace. So what you're left with is a fully automatic chainsaw of a shotgun that clears rooms in seconds. Now unfortunately I'm pretty sure this is only a world drop legendary, meaning that it has no dedicated loot source. I was able to farm the loot tinks on Jacob's Estate to find my level 50 anointed version while that farm was still a thing, but actually though I found this one in a Jacob's chest during that farm. So they're out there, they're just extremely rare, and for good reason I might add. Moving on to my next favorite pair of guns, we have the King's and the Queen's Call. Now there's really no difference between the King's and the Queen's Call except the elements they drop in. The King's drops in fire as well as shock, and the Queen's drops in corrosive as well as radiation and cryo. Now I'm fairly certain that there's no kinetic King's Call because I did a lot of farming to find my element types for this gun. The base damage isn't staggering, but the secret to these guns lies under the hood for us, with the bottom text that reads, critical hits return 3 bullets to your magazine and ricochet 3 bullets at the nearest enemy. If we compare that to the Lucian's as well as the Rowan's Call, the bottom text has similar flavors, but there's a significant difference how this plays out in game for us with the Kings and the Queens. With the Rowans and the Lucians, the bullets ricochet off towards adjacent enemies, but with the Kings and the Queens, the 3 shots spawned from the crits return to the enemy that was struck first. Here's a little gameplay to show you the effect. Which element type of these guns you are using obviously depends on the enemies you are facing. What's appearing on the top right is an elemental damage chart just for your reference. These guys are farmed from Tyrene, and it probably took me about 50 times before I was able to find one of each element type. The version you are looking at here is the best one that I have found, with the base damage of 1017 and the plus 10% critical hit damage multiplier, as well as the ×5 scope, which is very helpful. I like having a gun such as the AAA, as I find it's just more effective at stripping shields. I'm not sure where I got this one. I'm pretty sure it's a world drop. The 9-volt SMG would also be a good fit for this. You can find that from Kilovolt. Recharger shield is just the best shield that I've found in game thus far in terms of survivability. It's just downright amazing and just perfect for every build almost. With this guy, you basically have 2 shields, effectively making your total capacity over 20,000. This comes in all elemental types, I'm pretty sure. I prefer the Bullark prefix because it gives you the highest base capacity. This is also a random world drop as far as I can tell at this point. The grenade mod is also a little bit subjective, but I'm running the Stormfront because of its crazy AoE damage it gives off, and some people are claiming that it's a guaranteed drop from Gigamine, but I can't vouch for that because once again I found mine from the loot tinks. I've also considered running a Chupa's Organ or possibly a Transfusion just for the healing effects though. I was very lucky when I found this artifact. With the slide speed bonus of 102%, this makes your character almost too fast. You zip in and out of combat seamlessly with this guy on. Just watch out for crowd effects though, because crowd effects is like 75% of the reason I die with this build, as you can get caught with your pants down pretty quickly. Arguably, the most important part of this artifact though is the 21% action skill cooldown rate. It will cut about 10 seconds off your cooldown on Fade Away, which is just great. So what I'm saying basically is if all else fails, find an artifact with action skill cooldown reduction and you can't go wrong. Unfortunately, I haven't found a class mod yet that really matches the build perfectly, but I know exactly what I'm looking for. So as of right now, I'm using the head case, which grants us 1 more gun damage, 2 extra chance for bullets to be added back into the mag, making the Hell Walker even better, and 3 a 12% crit damage for the ambush predator skill. The bottom text is the part that really isn't ideal though. The extra shield capacity is nice, but not what we really want or what we're going for. But as you can see, it has a chance to spawn in as plus 45% Jacob's weapon critical damage, as well as plus 10% Jacob's weapon damage, which would be game breaking. So yeah, I'm looking for that. Other notable weapons that work with this build are mashers. Mashers are pistols that are basically shotguns, and they're Jacobs, which is perfect for us again. The Fire Sale Long Musket ++ is the best variant I've found of the Long Musket. It's just really good, just melts pretty much any flesh enemies. Super Shred-a-Fire, very good, very high fire rate. The Butcher is amazing. Lyuda, if you see those, pick those up, and then mention the Rowan's and Lucian's Call. They also just fit the build really well. Those are good. The Dastardly Maggie, or the Maggie, is major disappointment for me because I was really farming for it hard, and once I got it, I realized that it has bottom text debuff of minus 82% weapon damage, which is just dumb. It makes the gun useless. It's bad. I really hope they buff this in the future, so I'm gonna keep it in my inventory, but as of right now, I'm not even using it. So lastly, I'll just show my Guardian rank setup for right now. As you can see, I've heavily invested into action skill cooldown, as well as critical hit damage and gun damage, and I hope by now that's pretty obvious why. Some notable skills in the tree are Overkill. This actually comes into play a lot due to the sheer amount of damage that we're pumping out. Kakambo is great because we're just shooting a ton, and we have increased fire rate bonuses as well. The goal is to get Hollow Point, but it should be noted that it is confirmed that this does do damage to you as well as your allies. I don't know if that's intentional on Gearbox's part, but in my opinion, that seems a little broken. On the hunter side of things, the goal is to get this guy as well topped off. That will essentially make our cooldown really fast. So yeah, that's definitely a pickup for sure. Now that I've kind of explained the build to you guys, I think it's about time that I show you some gameplay and prove to you that I wasn't just rambling on for nothing. Because yeah, gameplay speaks for itself, so here you go. Also, I should mention that this is Mayhem 3, so keep that in mind.
Ready to pounce.
I just want to point out how fast I get my action skill back here. This is because the crits struck while in fadeaway carry over outside of fadeaway and count towards the head count ability in the hunter's skill tree. I just want to say thanks for watching, and I really appreciate it if you made it this far in the video. I hope you get a chance to try out this crit build because I'm enjoying it and I know you will too. And if you enjoyed it or it helped you at all, please go ahead and leave a like if that's to your fancy. This has been Naglodon and we'll see you in the Borderlands.